I'd do a little video based on some of the things I have been teaching in my classes lately to help create a sense of fluid movement, also known as mobility, but also stability and strength in the upper body, as much around the upper torso and spine as in the shoulder joints and then into the neck. And basically that does mean that we need to balance out stretching, getting things to free up, with giving the tissues, the muscles, but also the fascia, a sense of the strength, the kind of holding together that they can have. And the strength work is going to help us do a few things. It's going to help us have tissues that hold together and can keep their shape and can deal with weight and forces. But it's also going to help us get a little deeper into the tissues, like get into layers we don't normally get into. And what we'll need for that are, if you have yoga blocks at home, 2 yoga blocks. It's best if they're not the super light ones. And if you don't have yoga blocks at home, you could take your yoga mat, you don't actually need it, you could roll it together. One of the props is going to go between the thighs, so we create also a little bit of stability between the legs, inside the pelvis and the lower back. And the other one is going to come between the hands. So if you don't have a yoga block at home, anything that is kind of dense and it's not squishy, that has a little bit of weight, that you could comfortably press between your hands. Yeah, a book might work, like an old-fashioned book. And the block between the thighs, you want to have it like this, so that you see the narrow end of the block between your thighs at a horizontal position. And then between your hands, there are different kind of positions if you're using a yoga block. And if you're using something else, you can decide also how thick it is between your hands, so that basically your shoulder joints are happy. Some people are going to want it really narrow. For me, that doesn't feel super comfortable. Middle narrow, and then the bigger width between them is actually, for me, most comfortable. Okay, so let's start just standing. And we're going to have the fingers long and spread apart. So we're just using the palms of our hands to press into the block. And the pressure you're going to use onto the block between your thighs and onto the block between your hands is something you get to define. You can have a bit more, a bit less. That can change during the course of our work together. This pressure will decide or will define how much strength the tissues are gathering, but also how deep you get into the tissues. Okay, so let's begin just standing. You can bend the knees. And before we do anything else, let's just notice how we're feeling. Yeah, just overall the sense of, can I sense my body at all? And some parts of them might be super easy to sense, whilst others might not be so available. And then just notice sensations in your body. And some sensations will immediately come to your attention. You might know them very well. Let's try and continue to sense the more subtle sensations, the pleasant ones, the easy ones, as much as all the other ones. And then we can also along the way notice the emotions or thoughts we have about what we're sensing. Okay, so we've got it. Let's start with a little bit of strength work. If you feel like you don't want to do this standing up, you can do this sitting down, of course, on a chair or directly on the floor. So finger spread and long, pressing as much as you'd like between the blocks. All we're going to do is lift the blocks above our head, bend the elbows and keep the elbows close. And then we place the block now behind our head. And then we're going to lift the block in above the head and imagine you're giving it to somebody who's right in front of you. So we'll do that a few times. The block lifts up, the arms are long, and then we bend the elbows, elbows keep pointing forward, and the block comes behind our neck and head. Lift, pass the package, lift, choose different pressures, play around with that, block behind the head. Let's do that just 2 more times. So as you press more into the block, you'll feel more strength and you'll feel deeper into your tissues. And as you press less, that will kind of soften. Okay, next time your block is above your head, you're going to keep it there. And we're just going to do a little bit of turning. So we're not going to turn the legs or the pelvis. We're simply going to turn the shoulders, arms, head, neck a bit to one side and then to the other one. Still holding the block with as much pressure as we'd like. And we're simply turning a bit from side to side. Just for a moment. So we get into different areas of the tissues of that upper spine, of those arms, of the torso. One more time on either side. And when we're back into the center this time, we're going to take circles. They can be as big or as small as you'd like, over to one side and down. Let the head hang when you're down. And then coming back up through the opposite side. And let's repeat on that side once, or maybe twice if you're a little faster. And then do it a few times on the other, in the other direction. Just a few rounds, 2 or 3 depending on how many you did the first time round, and modify. So this is allowed to feel quite good. Even if there's a little bit of challenge, it's allowed to feel quite good. And then for a moment, we're just going to put the blocks to the side and just feel. There might already be quite a few sensations that are apparently different, very easily identifiable as different. And we're going to do 2 more things. One of them is just playing around with a little bit of mobility. So really trying to loosen things around the shoulder joint. And for this, we do not want the block between the thighs. So you're just going to put the block or the book, as long as it has a little bit of weight, you can use anything. And as long as it's flat, into one hand, fingers still spread and long. And we're going to try not to hold the block. It's okay if the block falls a bit or even a lot, that's totally fine. The purpose of this movement is to try and find different kind of angles in which we move the arm inside of its socket, to try and train with the presence of the block the brain and the entire nervous system to pay attention to the hand, to the arm, to feel them more fully than it normally does. And again, you can kind of modify this movement so it feels as good as possible. It might be a bit challenging once in a while, but it's allowed to feel good. So block out to the side, the arm is not fully extended, and we're going to pass the block behind us and then above us. Again, it might feel and look different than it does in mine. And then what happens if we try to pass the block in front of us and then out to the side, next to our waist, and then try to repeat this movement a few times, bringing in your own little modifications so it feels as easeful, as pleasant as is possible for your body right now. And then we're going to try it out in the opposite direction or in any other different way that you feel like trying. Just seeing what's possible. And if your block falls, don't worry about it. It might be a domino game. And what's possible is that it might be a domino game on one side, but not on the other. Now let's give it one more go. And then put the block between your thighs, just so you can have a moment to feel the way both of your arms are connecting and hanging off of your chest, alongside your chest. And also the way your neck, your shoulder, and your chest feel on the side that's just done all this amazing, intricate movement. But let's do the other side. Again, the block is just resting, your fingers are long and wide. And we'll start passing the block behind us, and then behind the head, above the head, in front, out to the sides. And you can really let the rest of the body move next to your waist. And then repeat with all of the modifications that are useful for you to keep finding fun and hopefully also a sense of pleasure. And that allows the movement to be as fluid as possible. Let's try moving in a different way, either the opposite direction or just something else. The block still simply resting. And I want to reassure you right now, it looks like I'm doing this super easily, like it's not an issue. And some days that's how it is, and some days that's not how it is. And also some days I can do it very easily on one side and not the other. Okay, one last time. And then let your block rest between your thighs again. Have a little moment to sense the way that the arm is now attaching to the chest and how it's resting by the chest. How the shoulder, that side of the neck and the chest feel. And then the last thing we're going to do, it would be really useful to have a block between the thighs. You don't have to, but you know, it might be really useful. Just to keep a little bit of like integrity in that middle of the body. And then again, a block between your hands. And we're going to do a little bit of the movement we did before. The block between the hands. And again, you get to decide how much you're pressing into it. And then you're going to bend the elbows, they're going to still point forward, and you're going to put the block behind your head. And now it's totally fine for you to wrap your fingers around the block, because you want to push the neck, the head, and the block towards one another. And that's going to create a bit of a chest opener. And then take a breath, reach the block up in front of you. And let's repeat it once or twice. You get to decide that block above your head. Elbows bent but pointing forward. Okay, grab hold of your block with your fingers. Press the block, the head or the block and the neck against each other. And then lift the block. Good. So whether you're going to do this one more time or whether you're done, whenever it's over for you, put the blocks to your side. And again, just notice overall your ability to sense your body, and especially this entire region of the chest. The way that it is doing inside, the sensations that are inside. And that's basically it. Yeah, so you can now decide, taking this forward, that some of these exercises were super useful for you. You felt it. You can play with the amount of pressure to go deeper into the tissues or stay at a certain layer. And then, you know, it's a function of how much time you have every day. You can do a little bit, you can do the entire sequence. It's totally up to you. But this should give you a sense of stability and strength in that upper spine, as much as a sense of like fluid movements being possible. That's it. Take good care of yourselves. Leave any comments, any questions you have, or get in touch. Be well. Bye-bye.